Imagine this. The year is 1698. The vast plains of Eastern Europe have been a battleground for centuries. For the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, one threat looms larger and more terrifying than any other: the lightning-fast raids of the Crimean Tatars. These weren't just battles, they were hunts for human beings, fueling a vast slave trade known as the Jacea system. But in 1698, this reign of terror was about to face its final, decisive test at a small town called Podhajce. This wasn't just another battle. It was the last great Tatar invasion into Poland. And the story of how a small Polish force not only survived, but crushed a massive Tatar army is one of military genius, a secret weapon, and the dawn of a new era of warfare. The timing of this raid was no accident. The Ottoman Empire, the Tatars' overlord, was on the ropes. The Great Turkish War had been raging for years, and peace talks were on the horizon. The Ottomans and their Tatar vassals were desperate for one last big win to strengthen their negotiating position. They needed loot, and more importantly, they needed thousands of captives to ransom or sell. So, Kaplan Jiro I, the Tatar Khan, gathered a colossal force of 30,000 elite cavalry and thundered towards the Polish border. Their goal was simple: plunder, burn, and enslave, one last time, before any treaty could stop them. Their target was the heartland of Poland, a region they had ravaged many times before. To them, it looked like easy pickings. They had no idea they were riding straight into a revolutionary new kind of trap. Waiting for them was the Polish Crown Army, led by a man whose name should be legendary, Grand Hetman Felix Kazimierz Potocki. On paper, Potocki was hopelessly outmatched. He had only 7,000 men against 30,000 Tatar horsemen, a 4-to-1 disadvantage. In the open field, traditional wisdom said his army would be swarmed and annihilated. But Potocki wasn't a traditional commander. He had a secret weapon, not a single piece of technology, but a whole new military philosophy. He commanded a hybrid army, a concept that was decades ahead of its time. For centuries, Polish military strength had been defined by the legendary winged hussars, the heavy cavalry that had shattered armies from Moscow to Vienna. But the era of the cavalry charge was fading. Potocki understood that the future of warfare lay in something else: firepower and discipline. His army was a perfectly balanced machine of combined arms. He had disciplined infantry armed with modern flintlock muskets, mobile dragoons who could fight on foot or horseback, a corps of traditional Polish cavalry for shock action, and most importantly, a powerful artillery train. This wasn't the old Polish army. This was a modern, Western-style force, designed not to chase the Tatars, but to break them against a wall of steel and lead. Potocki's strategy was to let the tidal wave of the Tatar horde crash against his unmovable rock. He chose his battlefield with the precision of a surgeon. Near the town of Podhajce, he found the perfect terrain: a series of hills, ravines, and a river that would funnel the massive Tatar army into a kill zone. He wasn't going to fight them on their terms. He was going to make them fight on his. And here, he deployed another classic, yet perfected, Polish tactic: the tabor. The tabor was a mobile fortress made of fortified wagons, chained together and reinforced with earthworks. It was a 15th century invention, but Potocki's engineers turned it into a 17th century masterpiece of defensive engineering. Inside this ring of steel and wood, he placed his cannons and musketeers. The Tatars, who relied on speed and overwhelming numbers, would be forced to charge head-on into a fortress bristling with guns. Potocki's plan was audacious. He would bait the trap and wait for the enemy to walk right into it. On September 8, 1698, the horizon darkened with the dust of 30,000 horses. The Tatar horde arrived, confident of another easy victory. They saw the small Polish force, dug in behind their wagons, and likely scoffed. Their tactics were simple and brutally effective: swarm the enemy from all sides, harass them with arrows, and look for any weakness to exploit for a final, overwhelming charge. The battle began. Waves of Tatar cavalry crashed against the Polish lines. They galloped in circles, firing arrows and probing the defenses, trying to draw the Poles out. But Potocki's men were veterans. They held their fire, their discipline unbreakable. They were waiting for the Tatars to get closer. The Polish muskets and cannons had a significantly longer range than the Tatar bows. As the Tatars charged, they entered a kill zone where they were being shredded by artillery and musket volleys, long before their arrows could find a mark. The air filled with the roar of cannons and the crackle of gunfire, a sound that drowned out the war cries of the horde. The Tatars were masters of mobile warfare, but they had no answer for this relentless, disciplined firepower. Their charges were broken, repulsed, and shattered, one after another. The ground in front of the Polish tabor was littered with the bodies of men and horses. The Tatar commanders were stunned. Their usual tactics were failing completely. The fighting raged for 2 days. The Tatars, growing more desperate, launched furious, all-out assaults. At one critical moment, a group of elite janissaries, Ottoman infantry supporting the Tatars, managed to breach a section of the Polish trenches. For a moment, it seemed like the line might break. But this is where the genius of Potocki's hybrid army shone through. He didn't panic. He unleashed his counterpunch, his own Polish cavalry, held in reserve for just such a moment. They slammed into the flank of the surprised attackers, driving them back in a bloody rout. The breach was sealed. The Polish line held firm. Then came the fatal mistake, a moment of greed that sealed the Tatars' fate. Seeing the battle stall, a large contingent of Tatar warriors, following their age-old instincts, broke away from the main fight. They spotted the Polish supply camp behind the lines and, thinking the battle was as good as won, they abandoned the assault to go plunder. It was the opening Potocki had been waiting for. With a significant portion of the enemy army distracted and disorganized, he ordered a general counterattack. The gates of the wagon fort swung open, and the Polish army advanced. Disciplined infantry formations marched forward, pouring controlled volleys into the new chaotic Tatar ranks. The Polish cavalry charged, not into a prepared enemy, but into a disorganized mob. The Tatars, caught between a disciplined assault from the front and the chaos of their own making, completely fell apart. The hunt for plunder turned into a panicked flight for survival. The great Tatar army, 30,000 strong, broke and fled in terror. The victory at Podhajce was absolute and overwhelming. The Tatar army was not just defeated, it was annihilated as a fighting force. The immediate consequences were massive. Kaplan, Giray, and the Ottomans lost all their leverage at the upcoming peace talks. They came to the table not as victors demanding tribute, but as a defeated power begging for terms. Just a few months later, in 1699, the Treaty of Karlowitz was signed. It was a landmark moment in European history. The treaty forced the Ottoman Empire to return the vast territory of Podolia, including the strategic fortress of Kamieniec-Podolski, to Poland after 27 years of occupation. The treaty officially ended the Ottoman Empire's expansion into Europe forever. And it all happened because of one battle, won against impossible odds. The last great Tatar raid was over. The Jasiah system, the economy of slavery that had terrorized Eastern Europe for centuries, was dealt a mortal blow. However, the victory at Podhajce also revealed a strange paradox in the Polish military. Potocki's defensive strategy had been flawless. His modern, Western-style army had proven its superiority. But there was one problem. After the Tatars broke and fled, the Poles were unable to mount an effective pursuit. The old-style Polish army had vast numbers of light cavalry, perfect for chasing down a fleeing enemy and, crucially, for rescuing the captives that the Tatars had taken on their way to the battle. But Potocki's modernized army had fewer of these light horsemen. So, while he won a stunning victory and saved the Commonwealth from invasion, many of the poor souls captured by the Tatars were lost forever, carried away in the retreat. It was a bitter pill to swallow and a lesson for Polish military planners. A perfect defense is not enough. You must also have the ability to strike back. Felix Kazimierz Potocki became a national hero. His leadership at Podhajce solidified his reputation as one of the great military minds of his time. He proved that with the right strategy, leadership, and a modern combined arms approach, even a smaller force could defeat a seemingly invincible foe. The Battle of Podhajce is more than just a forgotten clash of arms. It represents a pivotal moment in the history of warfare. It was the triumph of disciplined firepower over mobile shock tactics, the victory of a modern professional army over a traditional nomadic horde. It was the battle that secured Poland's borders, ended the Ottoman threat, and slammed the door shut on an entire era of Tatar raids. It was the day a secret weapon not of steel, but of strategy changed the map of Europe forever. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into a forgotten corner of military history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of epic battles and brilliant commanders. Let us know in the comments what other historical battles you'd like to see covered. See you in the next one.